Hey everybody, it's Jen,
It's Joe.
and welcome back to another episode of Creative Finance Playbook, where we go over all of the tips and strategies of how we love buying real estate without banks and without using your own credit. And today we've got a really great episode for you.
This is going to be the game changer. The one strategy that we've learned that's made us millions of dollars in real estate. And it's not just real estate. This is effective in everything you do. So get ready, buckle up because guys, we're going to go really deep into this and it is going to be completely awesome.
And it's probably not even what you think. So stay tuned for this one because it's something that I think a lot of people don't even realize. And get ready.
So, I mean, I've been in sales my whole life. And what I've realized was it doesn't matter if you're selling or if you're buying, most of the time you're dealing with people,
All the time you're dealing with people.
right? So
Whether you're selling perfume and cologne or you are trying to sell houses, it doesn't matter. The product is whatever you're selling or buying, and it's people, right? Really, truly, people are what you're dealing with.
yeah, so understanding that it doesn't matter if I'm buying real estate and I'm trying to learn like the newest strategy of like creative finance or fix and flips or wholesaling. There's like so many things to get into, but the number one strategy that we've really worked on that's really made that big difference has been communication, right? Communicating with other people. And so
Not even communicating, but communicating effectively.
absolutely. So we're going to go over some tips and some strategies that you're going to be able to use. And it's if it's in sales or whatever it is, guys, this is going to be the game changer for you because it was kind of like eye-opening to me when I had people say, Joe, like, I want to do this, but I don't like talking to people.
I think that was something that really shook me a little bit too, because I thought, well, isn't that what we're doing? We're helping people. We're trying
Mhm.
to solve problems. You have to ask questions in order to get to any result. And so if you don't like talking to people, then start there. Figure out what is that root cause. Because think about it, whether you have children, a spouse, friends, parents, siblings, there are people all over that you have to be able to communicate with in order to get along in life, right? Like you have to communicate just to, I mean, even if you're driving in your car, we have turn signals for a reason, and we've got all the things to help us through that. But I feel like it's just something that isn't taught. Maybe that's really, looking back to like education, it's not like I ever had a communication class until like there was college, but even then communications is totally different.
Yeah, and so, when you're dealing with the public, or you're even something as simple as just buying a house, the number one thing you're gonna have to do is talk to people. We hear this all of the time. So if this is something that you're gonna learn, like master it, like get really, really great at it. Not even good, but get great at it. So if there's any books or tips or whatever, get that in front of you and learn how to talk to
Well,
people.
let's stop there for a second because I know you were someone that recommended how to, what is that called?
How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
I need a reread on that one. It's been a while, but Dale Carnegie, he has a whole book on that, and it is an older read, but those are still very resounding today.
Oh yeah, like the one tip that I always learned from it and I implement this even when I was in car sales and somebody's coming in and talking about they want to buy a car and I don't start talking about like, well, my car is this, right? Or when somebody show me a picture of their kids, I'm like, well, my kids are, no, it's not like
Oh,
that.
Susie One Upper.
Yeah,
Oh,
don't
I
be the
can't
one
stand that.
upper, right? So it was always about complimenting them and what they're talking about. And so I think that was some of the things that I really gained from How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I've read that book 20 something years ago, and I've implemented these strategies ever since. So there's a good read right off the bat. Go
Yeah.
get that book.
We always, hear you have two ears and one mouth for a reason. And so it really is asking a question, but then like zipping it and letting the other person spill their guts and truly then listen to what they're saying. And then after they've shared that about their property, you can circle back and see if you can be a good fit to help them out.
Well, and the thing is this, when you're learning creative finance, you're learning about real estate investing. We're reading the books, we're listening to podcasts like this one, or watching the YouTube, and we're trying to learn these strategies so badly and so much, and we're spending so much time diving deep into how do I do a deal with seller financing? How is everybody buying these houses with just $100 down?
I'm literally giggling because you just took me back to the time I was on a phone call with a seller and I was trying so hard, shaking in my hands, holding the script to ask these questions. And instead of just trying to, solve his problem of like he had a house he no longer wanted. I think there were tenants in there. And then he threw me a curveball, right? Like he wanted the amortization schedule, which I didn't even know what that meant. And I got really nervous. But like thinking back, had I just calmed down and like realized just talking to another guy, he just happens to have a property, and it just like I got all in my head about that. Because again, I didn't know the exact terminology and I probably would have spouted out wraparound mortgage or something like that. But you don't have to get all worked up. You just need to learn to just talk.
So some of the things that I've gathered through talking to tens of thousands of sellers throughout the years, even 20 years in the car business, here's the tips that are going to get you going. The first one that I think is super important is if you don't know the answer to a question,
Mm,
don't make it up.
yeah,
Don't lie. Don't fake it till you make it. That does not work.
that does not
It
apply
might
here.
get you through like a half a second, but it's for the long run, bad idea, right? So if somebody always asked me a question and I didn't know the answer, I would always just say, you know what, that's a really good question. I'm so glad that you brought that up. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of research and let me get back to you with that answer. Is that okay? Follow up with a question,
Hmm.
right? But I'm telling them the truth, and the truth matters. It's so important in a world where everything is so full of it, right?
Yeah.
To be that shining light that actually could just say, "Well, this is how," and not knowing, no, that doesn't work. So if you ever get brought a question and you don't know the answer to, I actually make almost like a big deal about it. That is such a great question, Jen. I am so glad that you brought that up. That's a really good one. Let me take some notes on that and write that down. And let me get back to you with that answer so I can make sure I give you the right information.
Hmm.
So easy.
Yeah.
Anybody could do that. So here's the thing. You get put on the spot. The pressure's on. You want to give them some response that you might not be sure of. Fall back on that. It is easy peasy.
And
But
it's okay. Like, don't beat yourself up over not knowing. Like, you use that as like your tool of, okay, like now you can go gather that information. And honestly, again, you're buying a house. So you're going to need to do some research. There are lots of things. Like, you're not going to make a deal in 30 seconds on a phone call, no matter how eager the seller is, will make me an offer.
right. Well, and then here's the thing. Second part to that. If you feel or you find yourself saying that too often, well, maybe you need to do a little bit more education on the
Mm.
matter that you're dealing with, right? So if I was asked 10 questions and every 10, every one of them, like, well, that's a good question. I don't know any of these answers, right? Well, then maybe take a step back. But generally what's going to happen is you're going to get maybe that one curveball, maybe even two questions. That's totally okay, guys. So first of all, if you don't know the answer, make a point of just no, acknowledging their question,
Mhm.
telling them that is a really good question, Jen. I am so glad that you brought it up. I'm gonna take that note down and let me find that out for you, and I'll get back to you. Is that
And then
okay?
you would then roll into another question, right? Like, because you always talk about too, maybe this is one of your points you're going to make is
Oh
kind
no.
of control the conversation, right? Like the person who's asking the questions and truly taking those notes down, like they're kind of guiding, the path of it versus if you flip flop and now the seller's like kind of coming at you. And I see that happening with people because they are new or they're nervous or they just, they get all worked up about it or they don't like talking to people. So that's where, we want to give some more tips on that.
Yeah, so you got to remember, like, we're the ones in control of the conversation. We're the ones doing this, thousands of times, hundreds of times. This is usually their first time. So we want to kind of control the conversation, and not in a bad way control,
No.
but what I want to do is I want to ask
Yeah.
questions, right? And I want to be the one leading the conversation by asking great questions. And I think this is the big point of it is if you're just sitting there and you're getting berated by questions and questions and
Yeah.
questions, and you just feel like you're backpedaling, just answering, you're
Your
trying to do
back's
the,
against the wall and all the
yeah, that's the wrong way to do it, right? And I've been in some of these situations before too. So what
or you've
I've,
been on the phone for like 45 minutes hearing about their life
oh,
story.
that's a whole other thing, right? But yeah, exactly. They took control over the
Yeah.
conversation. They snatched it from me. They're in control, and I'm just sitting there like twirling my thumbs, right? So the big thing is you want to be able to be honest with the people. If they don't know the answer, tell them that. This next step, you want to be in control. You want to be in control of the conversation, so lead with questions. And if somebody asks me a question, I always say is that's a like, hey Joe, what's your offer on the house? Like, that's a really good question. I'll probably know more when I come out and see it. But do you have a rough idea what you need for the property?
I like what you did there.
Right. So that's a great question. I'm bringing it up. I'll know more when I come see the house, but do you have a rough idea of what you need for the property? Well, no, just make me an offer. I will, but before I come out, I just need to know range or rough idea. What I mean, what do you need for it?
And that's also going to tell you if that person is truly motivated.
Yeah, because if they're like, nope, I'm not telling you, there's no way, then I'm not coming. I don't want to go to a house and get in my car and spend all the time in traffic and do all of these
Mhm.
things. And I'm telling you from experience, you get there because they didn't name their price, right? And you figured you looked up some comps and you're figuring this house is worth 250,000 for an example. You get there and like, well, I want 350,000 for it. That would have saved me a lot of drive time if I knew the
Mhm.
answer before then. So the next tip is make sure that you're gathering all the right information, right? So know what questions to even ask. And that is so important. I know this was my biggest hurdle when I
Mhm.
was first starting getting into real estate. It's like, what do I even ask?
Yeah, I remember at one point we had a trainer who was like, build that rapport. And I'm like, I'm really supposed to like start like asking about like their kids and school and all of that. And it like then you're talking for like 20 minutes about something that's not even related. And I don't know, what were your thoughts on like that whole building rapport for,
Okay.
for
So for what it's worth, if you're gonna build rapport, do it in like 3, maybe 4 minutes. Okay. Because sometimes too, like, oh, you have kids, I have kids, right? So sometimes the way I build rapport, for an example, I might be on the phone with a seller and oh, their dog will start barking, right? And this just happened to me the other day. Their dog was barking because the mailman was there. And I was like, they're like, oh, excuse me, so sorry, my dog is barking. I'm like, no worries, I have a 14-pound Chihuahua. So if you hear barking on my end, I have a dog too. That was it.
Yeah.
I didn't get into like, oh, this and that and about your dog.
What's
Like
your dog's name? How
none of
old?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So there's a point of like building rapport, but doing it quickly where it's actually more genuine
Yeah.
than
Forced.
ingenuine. Yeah, because sometimes you're forced, well, do you like sushi? I like sushi, right? Like none of this stuff really truly matters about us doing the deal. You don't want to get sidetracked,
Yeah.
right? So
Really
I
get on that line.
I come in with the straight line approach. I have a series of questions I like to ask. We have our buffer zone where if they go outside of the line, they can a little bit, and that's fine if they're still in the buffer zone. It's when these conversations go really far outside of it, you're going to lose control. You're going to hear about the neighbor, the pond, the dog down the road, the barn, the fire that happened in
Mhm.
1974, and you're going to be there for way too long. And you're talking to somebody who I remember the one time. Probably should have got the price before I got there. I probably should have.
Which time?
I'm going to tell you the time because you'll remember it. I probably should have known the terms and the price before I got there because this lady was like, just come out and see the house, come out and see the house. So I got there. I was stuck there for 3 hours.
Oh, you didn't bring me to that one.
I did not.
I
And
was worried. I was ready to like put out like an SOS.
thank God I was bigger than her because I know she wasn't going to kidnap me.
Oh
But
man.
I felt temporarily kidnapped.
But we're taking you guys back to 2017 when we were just starting to, like, she came in as a lead. We
Hmm?
didn't qualify her by asking these questions well enough. And he was just so excited. And that's what happens. But if you don't have this plan, then next thing you know, like 3 hours of a busy life, we had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and you worked crazy hours at a dealership. So you really didn't have,
Half-hour drive there,
yeah.
3 hours at the house, half-hour drive home. There was 4 hours of my life I will never get back.
We
So
didn't do the deal, just so
we
everybody's
never did
clear.
that deal, right? And there was others like that. So here's some of the tips that we like to do. Like we want to make sure that we're asking great questions, guys. And if you want to know the 10 questions that we ask every seller, go to our website, creativefinanceplaybook.com. I'm going to say that one more time. Creativefinanceplaybook.com and download our script for free, guys. It's for free. And these are the 10 questions that we actually DM every
Mhm,
seller before we even get on the phone,
mhm.
and this is going to give us the information back based on their answers. How motivated are they, right? So the communication could be done through messaging, but I don't love messaging because you lose your tone, you lose body language. There's so many other things that you just don't get there.
Yeah, and
But
that's where talking to people is going to be really important. But as you're getting started, those first questions you can simply message back and forth. But then also having that presence on social media, you have to be confident in yourself and know that you are here to buy properties. So everyone should know on your Facebook page before you go out there and start joining these groups that you are a real estate investor. Maybe you don't use that word, but you could just say, like, hey, I'm looking to buy a house, looking to buy some properties. Like, you want to be very vocal about it, maybe not obnoxious, but almost daily you should be telling everybody. And then getting on the phone when the time is right and to not be scared of the phone conversation and to practice, take a little video of yourself. We've got these phones that we carry around, talk to yourself in the mirror while you're driving, kind of rehearse some of these questions that you can, ask, drive your spouse crazy like he did back in the day when I just had to hear him talk over and over again. But the truth is, you'll get better once you practice it, right? Right now, we're actually teaching our son multiplication and going back to the very beginning of, two times two, two times four, like it's repetition, repetition, repetition. And it's the same thing here. You're only nervous to talk to people because you haven't done it before.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you another big tip that is really important is when you are talking to a seller, the key to it is making sure that you're talking to actually motivated sellers. And this was the game changer for us. So it's definitely important to make sure you're talking to sellers, and that's always the key.
Hmm.
But you want to separate the unmotivated people from the truly motivated people. Guys, we actually, for our team, we've made a scale of motivation of 1 through 10. 10 being the most motivated seller in the world, like, hey, come take my house, you could have it, like whatever, right? And then one, they're like angry. They want to sell you their house, but they're mad at you,
Hmm.
right? They're mad that you're asking
Even
questions.
though they reached out.
They're like, yeah, I'm like almost inconvenienced to them, right? But they're trying to sell me something, right? So I've realized throughout the years is about communicating, but make sure that you're communicating with the right people. And that's what we're going to get into now. So when you're talking to sellers, I always like to ask questions. Hey, can you please tell me about the property? Why are you selling it? How soon do you want to sell it? Right? These are some of the questions on our script. So if you get it, you'll see these on there. They sound really basic questions,
They are.
but they're not yes or no
Hmm.
answers. These are open-ended questions. So the next part we're going to talk about is ask open-ended questions. Answers aren't just yes or no. There's going to be more to it. And what I've realized was the more that they open up, the more you're going to get. So the more questions that you're able to ask, the more information you're going to gather. You're going to find out if they're motivated. You're going to find out what's their urgency like. Do they need to sell last week or do they want to sell 2 years from now? Big, big, big difference, right?
Hmm.
So I think having these conversations, asking the right questions, that's going to be the key to this business.
Yeah, and again, it's just practicing asking the questions, finding out the reason, and going back to like resonating with people, being very compassionate, and knowing like question number two that we always ask is why they're selling. And a motivated seller is going to open right up, and they're probably going to write a paragraph to you. And so, just taking that information and then just seeing if you can help them and take that stress off yourself. You're not here to have to make a decision in the next 2 to 5 minutes. Again, you're going to probably do a little bit of research, see if it's something that you can make work for both of you and just not stressing out. 'Cause I feel like some of us type A people, perfectionists, you think you have to have it all figured out right now or you can't pass go. And somebody like you is more of that like, hey, I'm going to figure it out and you're more excited about it. So you think about your personality there. If you need to just kind of loosen up a little bit and not be so type A, just recognize that.
Yeah, so get the script, ask the questions. It takes all of the thinking out of it because the next step is what we've learned from the best negotiators on the planet. Okay, this is like next level. Is I'm never going to tell the seller, like, I'm going to make an offer or make the statements. No, I'm going to actually ask questions and have the seller make us the
Yeah,
offer.
there's no icky feeling of like, here's your 3 or 4 offers. Now you must choose. Like, we just don't do that.
No, the seller makes us the offer. And what
Mhm.
we realize with truly motivated sellers, they're going to be. They're going to be excited that you're there.
Mhm.
They're going to be excited that they're even given, this conversation. So this is why, once again, when I'm messaging people in the beginning, if they're not super motivated, I'm going to put them in a follow-up system. I'm not going to even hop on the phone with them. Why talk to somebody who isn't worth talking to? So these are going to be some of the tricks and tips. They're not really tricks, but they're strategies, guys. These are strategies. So
Kind of like tricks, like your little trick bag,
you
like
need it.
pull them out and like, woohoo, let's see what we can do today. Let's do a deal.
You absolutely need that. So communication is going to be one of the strategies. If you don't like talking to people, well, then start, right? Start getting good at it. Start having these questions
You know what
and
else helps there?
conversations.
Focus on your why. If you have a burning desire of not just helping people, it's got to be deeper than that. It's got to be I want to walk away from my W-2 who does pay me well, but I'm 2 weeks a year and I've got no time to see my kids. I only see my daughter on Sundays. Like that was your huge why.
Yeah.
Same with me. Like I couldn't imagine like only like having the kids myself most of the time, like when you were working. It was just crazy. So, for us, that was our why. We really honed in on it. And so if you feel like, oh, like I just can't pick up the phone to talk to people, then you need to go real deep and just figure out like what is your why? Why did you even want to become a real estate investor? What is one property going to do for you and your family, let alone even more?
Yeah. And the next step, last thing, if you're on the phone having a conversation, the worst thing that you could do is just not make the deal, guys. They're not going to beat you up. There's nothing bad that's going to happen. So make these calls. Gets a little awkward in the beginning. And just like Jen said in the beginning, over time, you start to grow your confidence and you start to build it up one small win at a time. So,
Mhm.
guys, get real good at communication. This is not just for real estate investing. This is not just for being in sales. This is going to help
Life.
you the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Humans, they're only getting more around, right? So we have to just embrace that, love it, and help each other out too. So that's the key to our favorite strategy of what's made us the buying with seller financing or all these other strategies. They all work,
Mm.
okay? But without communication, they're worthless. So talk to people.
There you go, guys. Until next time.
I'm Joe.
I'm Jen, and be sure to leave us a review. Tell us what you like, tell us what you want more of, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Bye.